A calendar of recent Five Cities events. 2 decades, one piece, circa. On the feast day of Santo Braziera, dread beasts emerge from the seas and attack the citizenry. The creatures are only routed after a 3-week war fought by a doughty crew of sailors, soldiers, and scholars, thereafter dubbed the Winter Nights, for the blazing white stars showing Vatre of the White Whale's blessing on the group. Rey Barbaranta Kittel renamed the city in her honour and converted to the Ladies' Worship, charging what remained of Winter Night forces to look outwardly against invasion from the other 4 cities. Piety lacking and wickedness rife, storm commenced, and an army of 8 caballeras is lost. Hello friends and families to part 2 of today's 2 video extravaganza duology. Nobody will ever say that I'm good with words, but in any case, I want to go straight into it by asking the question. But first, what are we doing here? This is a series called My 30-Day World. It was made by some guys called Absolute Tabletop. They've got a Kickstarter. They've been kickstarted and they've met all their stretch goals so far. And this is basically a thing that they wanted to do to give back to the community and to really get people thinking in terms of world building. I like it. I'm going to do it. The rules are 30 questions, 30 days, answer 1 a day, however you want to do it. I actually encourage you guys to get involved and do it yourself. And yeah, let's get on to question 27. Question 27 for the 15th of April 2018. Do any people revere nature in your world, and how deeply? The concept of nature worship in Talum is very different from how we would recognize it in our world. At the moment, in our world, we recognize nature worship, paganism, this kind of thing, as being like this great peace cult of sorts, being one with nature and other things to that effect, and so on and so forth. The cycle of life and death being this great peaceful event, and flower child, come on guys, you know, everyone's heard of a hippie. Talum doesn't really have that because of the perception that people have in Talum that the world is trying to actively kill them. If it's not storms, it's bad yields. If it's not bad yields, it's animals coming in from the wilds. If it's not any of those things, it's something else, all of which can generally come together and be considered, while not actively one singular source, it can be generalized into the simple idea of nature. Now, yet again, we're going to be looking into a bit of anthropology as well as a bit of mythology regarding how people in our world have worshipped and recognized the belief in worship of nature, and generally how people conceptualize nature. One of the reasons why we consider nature now to be a very peaceful force is because we recognize that most of the sources of violence and badness in our world comes from humans. But that's not always been the case. In Mesopotamia and Babylon, the Akkadian Empire and so on and so forth, they lived in an area known as the Mesopotamian Basin. This was a place where it was very, very inclement weather, inconstant tides, droughts, floods, all of the stuff that goes on. It had everything. And actually, that bled over into their worship of deities, because a lot of the deities that they had were considered to be angry, forceful, wrathful gods. Gods that, if they weren't careful, were going to step on them. And this form of stepping on came in the form of floods, droughts, any of the things that I was talking about before. As a result, the system of tribute, the system of worship of these gods was really, really different from anything else. They were trying to placate the gods. They weren't trying to get along with them. They were trying to placate them. Compare that to the Nile Valley, where it was actually very, very easy for people. The people of Egypt were able to kind of really conceptualize and understand that, in fact, the tides are very, very regular. Monsoon season is very, very regular. You could set your watch by certain things. Timekeeping was a greatly improved thing at that time. And as a result, a lot of their deities were actually much more peaceful. It wasn't about placating them, it was about currying favour with them. They actually wanted them to get along. You could be liked by these gods, as opposed to the Mesopotamians, who would generally just, like, you were always in their bad books, always. Something that can be said in theologians' standards, that the religions of the Abrahamics actually have some of this undertone from it. As can be seen, Jerusalem very much in the Mesopotamian basin. As a result, there is this undertone of the god of the Abrahamic religions greatly disliking the people who worship them. Original sin, being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, stuff like this. And that is how the people of the 5 free cities conceptualize nature, this world that they have around them, rather than the deities that they have above them. The deities to them are protective forces. Nature, however, is an extant, wild, destructive force. You can no more curry favour with it than you can convince a river to stop trying to drown you. You can, however, try to placate it and try to make good with it. The main reason why there's this difference, and it is different from the exact Mesopotamian basin relationship, is actually because I didn't want to do an exact copy. I wanted to kind of have it be a bit more nuanced. But largely in the setting, it is because people have a general, vague knowledge of the idea of primal spirits, or spirits of the land. Now, I've mentioned these spirits a couple of times in the past, and they mainly come from the idea of shamanistic worship. That's something that's been going on in my game for a good long while. A number of player characters decided that they wanted to play shaman-like characters, and as a result, that kind of got imbued further and further, and I kind of got more involved in it. So anyway, people kind of recognize that the world is in some way, shape or form alive. They don't know how that works, and honestly that's very, very in-depth and not very understood mystery that the players have become more and more aware of, but not absolutely sure about all the rules yet. And that's something that's going to come up later. But these forces seem to be some kind of compounding influence on the land. These creatures are involved in the land. They seem to have a greater or lesser effect on whether or not that land is tillable. And, yes, sometimes they do have the effect of causing meteorological events. What does this mean? How does it happen? Or even, are they actually necessarily real? Not many people know. But it is one of those things that superstition niggles. Now, the other side of things, the other people who are very much involved in the idea of nature, are actually the people of the plains. As I've said before, the people of the plains seem to not fear the unknown as much as the people of cities. And cultural differences really exacerbates this problem of the people of the plains and the people of cities do not get along. Sanguine is able to kind of treat with them and are much more able to understand and make peace, but it doesn't always work out. Almost working in contradiction to the people of the cities, the people of the plains do not seem to have a very adversarial relationship with nature. They do not fear the storms, as I've said before. Their relationship with these primal spirits seems to very much be kind of one of friendship, camaraderie and companionship, than as opposed to what we have with the people of the cities, where it has to be more about sublimation, trickery, and in some way, shape or form trying to get one up on one another. The reason that I wanted to play this through was actually because of the shamanistic aspect. You know, the person who really brought the idea of primal spirits into the world of Talum was one of my players, and my player was playing a person of the plains, a shifter in Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, and I kind of wanted to have their relationship to be much more, but also I wanted to have that kind of dichotomy, that contradiction of one side fearing nature, the other side not fearing nature, but not because the force of nature in Talum is the concept of wilderness. It's the concept of untamability, and it's how people perceive that untamability. So, from the point of view of the peoples of the cities, it's very hard to it's very hard to live in a world where there is this untamable thing in front of you. You live in an entirely artificial world where you have built everything around you. The idea that storms can destroy you, it's terrifying. For the peoples of the plains, not so. And why? Well, that will come out during play. And that is that, and this is me signing off. I thank you all very much for this, and I will say that I'm going to be in a hangout with RP Gamer today at 10 p.m. GMT in about a little while, you know. We will be going over a Dragon Age game that we are playing together. He's GMing and I'm going to be one of the players in it. And, you know, I hope to see you there. I'll give a shout out along here or on Twitter or anything like that. If anybody has an interest in seeing me post the things that I like to post, look me up on Twitter. I'm also going to be on here a lot more. And Google Plus is also a place that I know exists. So, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!